Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'll be brief. Sorry. Shipping environment, if anything, it's very dynamic. So what's the current picture? We have a financial crisis, China slowdown, funding, if anything, it is changing in patterns and the difficulty to secure. We have political changes that create uncertainty. Just as an indication, we have Brexit ahead of us, as well as different trade wars that already have been referenced today by previous speakers. There are different, also a large range of regulations coming up, such as the sulfur cap of 2020. Competition is stronger than ever, and so on and so forth. Last but not least is the fourth industrial revolution, this digitalization of everything, artificial intelligence, and everything that comes with them. All this creates a very dynamic environment in which shipping is invited to respond. Now, in this redefining of shipping, we have certain constraints. China cannot be forever the powerhouse, the steam engine of growth. Its slowdown is a confirmed reality by now. New regulations create uncertainty. Already we had lots of discussions in this room since morning about, for example, the sulfur cap and the fueling issue. And we have new technologies which will change and they will challenge the traditional way of decision-making in shipping. So, this is not news to you. Greece is, in terms of deadweight, it's the largest ownership in the world. And in terms of financials, the stakes are very, very high. Now, the Greek shipping sector is facing unprecedented challenges. For example, it has to maintain and secure its leadership position. It has to develop and adopt the digital era and play a role in formulating its applications in shipping. And also it is invited to contribute to the institutional framework that will define everything in the next 10 years. Now the ecosystem, the landscape of shipping is more complex than ever. So indicatively, from going clockwise from top around, we have the ship owners and shipping companies. There are the retailers, there are the customers, the charterers, and so on, consumers, employees, and minor external suppliers. We have regulators and governments, the media, local communities with activists and interest groups, non-government organizations, unions, syndicates. We have the academia and the research it carries out, as well as banks, financiers, insurance, and so on. So, the ecosystem is very, very diverse. At the same time, the financial stakes are very, very high. Why? Because investment in the sector is huge. So we have two elements here. One element is a diverse ecosystem, and the second element is the very high financial stakes. What this does, it creates uncertainty. So uncertainty prevails, and it's an integral part of what we see today around the world, and in shipping especially. When we have uncertainty and a diverse ecosystem with very different stakeholders, what happens usually is conflict. And conflict is not a bad thing. It's a means of moving forward. The issue is, how are we going to manage conflict? Are we going to go to a war? Are we going to go to a law of court? Or are we going to do other things? One of these other things is a negotiation process, which practically all of you engage in on a daily basis. If we are going to choose negotiations as a means of resolving this conflict that is being created, what we need to do is to provide a certain structure. A negotiating process is a very structured process. It's not something chaotic, it's not something stochastic. So what we need to do is provide a very specific structure on how we negotiate. And what I am here today to do, I'm here today to invite you to take your negotiations a bit more seriously and in a more structured manner. So we need to ask and answer questions such as, for example, who is going to be better prepared? Who is going to have the right skill set in place when the time comes? Who will influence the power balance? Why? Because all the stakeholders that we saw in the ecosystem graph a few slides before, they're going to fight to retain their precedence. They're going to try to gain more and more and more. So where's the power balance going to settle? What kind of strategies will be adopted? A strategy is not a vague and undefined thing. It's something very, very specific, but one needs to know how to define it and how to apply it. In case of price bargaining, for example, something that happens practically every day to all of us, how's everyone going to handle it? It's not very much a Turkish bazaar kind of thing anymore. Who will control the process? Who will accelerate the process? And who is going to set the agenda? There are very specific tools to do these things. And I wonder how many have these very clearly positioned in their mind. And who will be closer to achieving their targets? It has been observed by numerous studies that there are entities, whether they are governments, syndicates, companies, institutions, that consistently are always on target at the end of a negotiating process, and there are others who are consistently not on target at the end of a negotiating process. Where do you want to belong? What I'm trying to say is that the negotiation is going to be a lubricant in the difficult times that are approaching. Lunchtime. Thank you.